All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. This is the last day of the Open Intra PTG uh, for the Gazpacho release, and we're starting off the with reviewing cryptographic policies. So we have JP here from Red Hat, and he's got some notes, and I'll let him do the intro, and we can kick off the discussion with that. Just a reminder, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. It'll be really helpful to sequence folks in. Thank you. JP.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the introduction and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So I'm a product manager. So the vision I'm having on OpenStack obviously is a product manager vision, meaning I'm looking already toward 2027, 2028. I also happen to be involved in. I've been involved in the past in FIPS support discussion on OpenStack and also on Kubernetes, our distribution OpenShift, and I've been working on post-quantum cryptography support also on OpenShift. And this is why I'm kind of familiar with the problem, and if you got the chance to read my email, then I'm pretty much going to repeat myself. We think that quantum computers should be powerful enough to break traditional asymmetric cryptography, pretty much public key encryption, somewhere around 2030. If you make some just Google search about when that should be, you'll find some Microsoft entries about it. Some discussion with IBM Research, because IBM is also working on quantum computing, told me 2029. So it's pretty much the time frame that I am considering as PM, where the product should be safe. OpenStack powers a lot of mission critical infrastructures. So the question is not really if we want to do it, it's really a question of when we're going to do it. And the other side of the coin is the day that there is a computer that is powerful enough to break traditional encryption, then it's too late. It's too late. So the time, I think the timing now is good to start looking at the problem and to see how we can work into incorporating post-quantum cryptography into OpenStack. And so there is a part that is, we rely on operating systems. The vendors are aware of the problem. I talked at OpenInfra with my canonical counterpart, and they're pretty much they have similar roadmap as we're having at Red Hat regarding operating system. So the support is ongoing. I've seen notes at the bottom that OpenSSL 3.5, the support is there, and then they'll work for OpenSSH too. So the awareness from the operating system vendors is there, and the awareness of the complexity is there too. Now the actual question is, what happens with the cryptographic code that is not, operating system, that the operating system vendors are not going to do the work for us. And this is why I run an AI engine, in fact, several AI engines against the upstream OpenStack code. And I came back with a total of 17 cryptographic modules. And of those 17, like 7 had no commit in the last 2 years. And then, I got some discussion with Artem that, some of them might no longer be used. But, the question is, if the code is not used, is no longer used, why is it still in the code? The cryptography should be removed. And then the question is, how do we need 17 cryptographic modules in OpenStack? Maybe we should have less. Whenever we can offload cryptography to the operating system, then we're kind of not having to deal with a problem that is going to be well supported by the operating system, community, and our vendors. And then how we do it. So I think the time now is right. Not that I want the community to stop everything and start working on the problem. I think now the time is right to understand exactly what is the problem in each project, and understand that each project should have an inventory of their cryptography, understand their dependency, what dependency eventually you're pulling, and make sure that the entire chain is well known, and then how we can meet the goal of quantum safe. And the idea of having a TC overview is that ideally all projects should arrive pretty much at a date that should be agreed with the TC, somewhere late 2027, 2028. We also have to consider that if the code is fixed, doesn't mean that it's in production. We also have to give time to people to roll out on their critical infrastructure the updated code. So, which is why the idea that if we arrive in 2029, we're already a bit late for people who might need 6 months to a year to do a full deployment of the capabilities. And the first thing that we need to protect is the key encapsulation, key exchange, which would be the use of the quantum safe MLKM, or the hybrid variant of it. The digital signature is another problem, but it's something that we can consider a little bit later. So that's for me the overall point. We could talk about why quantum computers can break traditional cryptography faster, thanks to Peter Shor's algorithm. So the time to break the algorithm will no longer be exponential; it would be linear. So what would take billions of years today would take, I don't know, days, weeks, depends on the power of that quantum computer. So that's where I stand at the moment. I'm willing to help coordinate, drive the effort if the community has interest in working into that. And as I wrote, the first step to fix a problem is to agree we have a problem. And again, I'm not asking to rock everything in terms of delivery and timeline. I think now is the time to plan to start a code analysis, if not in the current development cycle, in the next one, so we can start working on the remediation in the subsequent cycles. Questions, comments?
So I guess I'll jump in here first. I agree with the sentiment overall. There's an aspect of my mind where I want discussions to be data-driven, and I think there's obviously at this level that is like TC governance levels of things, it's much more setting a vision. And I think maybe the vision needs to be in 2 parts or 3 parts. But the very first one is projects probably need to catalog and kind of go from there. What that shape should be up to the TC, and the TC should act upon that. But I do think, we do need to probably try and be ahead of the curve, not be behind the curve, because ultimately everything we read about this in theory, we have to keep in mind there are people that are 2-3 years ahead of that. There are people working on things that their research paper may not be permitted to be published for 5 years. So we should just keep that in mind when we mentally think of any dates, time windows, whatever, as we go forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Tony?
Yeah, I think I think the idea of this goal is wonderful. I'm just not sure what it is you're asking for. Is like, you said there are like 17 cryptographic libraries in use. Could you put the results of that audit somewhere? I mean, seems like you've done some of the pre-work for coordinating this goal, but haven't shared it. So is that something that you could do in the near future?
Oh yeah, it was in my initial email. There was a link to. I need to figure out where I put the link, so I can add it to the Etherpad regarding that analysis. I just need to find it. So yeah, I'll share it. I know it's somewhere in my emails.
To be fair, that was my intent of trying to say that we should make it data-driven. Was try and extract those details out and make it visible, then also start driving that discussion using data points.
Okay. Cool. So we're on the same page. I love it when that happens.
I mentioned this on my response to that email. Part of my frustration with that document on the wiki is that it's incredibly high level and incredibly verbose, and it doesn't really give, like, for me at least, when I look at this, I want to know, like, if something were captured today to be decrypted 5 years from now, where are we most at risk for that sort of thing versus I'm making an API request to boot a server. I don't care if that gets captured 5 years from now and someone knows I booted a server called Clark B test, right? Like, I think that there's a lot more that needs to be done from this data-driven perspective, and I don't think that has been done. And instead, it's just we've got all of these libraries, yes, but why and why for and how, like, I think that's what's missing for me.
Absolutely agree. I'm jumping in. Absolutely agree. There's a risk analysis that has to occur as well. For each instance of use, a risk analysis needs to be performed. That could be fairly lightweight process, but people need to at least go, where are the attack vectors? Where are the risks? Does this matter or not? And for some things, it might not matter in the slightest because that data is useless. It can't be used as an attack pivot vector after 30 seconds or whatever.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't want to be obstructionist, and I think that if there are people who are interested in spending time and resources on making OpenStack more secure, then that's great, regardless of what excuse we use to do that. But I do want to make sure that people are aware that we have significant security threats to OpenStack today, not posed by some fictional hardware that may exist in the future. And I would love it if all of this energy could be directed toward securing OpenStack overall in ways that help us not only with potential future threats like quantum computing, but also with the present threats that we have.
I totally agree with you, Tony, and I think that again, first to the fact that the analysis I provided is very high level is because it's the time I had, and it was just myself and the engine and a lot, many projects in OpenStack. So I just wanted to have a high level overview, and that high level overview just tells me, well, we need to dig in project by project. So I cover security in OpenStack at my company. So obviously we'll be digging into Barbican and Keystone because that's the one where the team I work with is most involved. But for the other project, and I need someone to look at. And then if at the moment I see 17 cryptographic modules, then maybe we should not have 17. Maybe we should agree that it should be, I don't know, 5 or less or something like that. I mean, you can build an entire operating system with pretty much 5 to 6 cryptographic modules. Then we do really need more than that in OpenStack. Then if we have less cryptographic modules, then we have less security risk from cryptography point of view. And anything that can help improve the security posture of OpenStack is something that I'm totally good with.
I think Jay, you had your hand.
Yeah, I think I was next, and the timing's good. Like, I was going to say almost exactly what Jeremy said. And while I understand that, like, there are, issues here, I'm glad that people are concerned about the security enough. Like, the reality is that the VMT spends an inordinate amount of time trying to get active security bugs that might have an exploit posted looked at by some project teams. So from our perspective, if you're able to talk one of those teams into looking at quantum cryptography instead of at a backlog of security bugs they might have to work on, that's kind of a net loss for the community. And that's kind of where it is. That's not, I don't want that to any way, shape, or form come off to say like we don't appreciate this sort of effort. But it's also one of those things where this is a very high level look. But if you go look at the details, there's a lot more work to be done on the details of things that can impact us today.
So I think that we are trying to deal with two things here right now. One of which is like post-quantum security, which I agree we have some time to spare, I guess, for it. But the second thing, which is like usage of enormous amount of crypto modules, which are not maintained at all, is current actually threat. And I think should be dealt with more priority than post-quantum security anyway. Cryptography, sorry. And like my idea of how we can deal with, and I wrote this in chat, is potentially to have some kind of Oslo crypto and as acting as interface or like providing what we kind of might need in projects to avoid using these modules directly. And in case they are not maintained, we probably either would need to like provide different interface or maybe maintain the code or something like that.
Yeah, Artem.
I'm honestly absolutely against of idea with Oslo crypto, because trying to re-implement cryptography or even to build up a proxy on top of cryptography is even worse than the mess what we have right now, but sort of a different problem. My general statement to that would be that I feel like people are jumping a little bit too far, because first what we need to do is to understand exactly like JP said, to understand the problem, where we are, and to do inventory of what we use, where we use, how we use, and do we really need to use it this way, which immediately brings us to the problem that, yeah, we have current threats. So it's basically jumping on also on the statement of Dmitry and Jay. So we have those problems right now, yes, but part of the solving of the problem that JP says is actually to do inventory, which will help us to address the problem, or at least to understand what we have to do. So there was no statement regards what you are expecting us to do, JP, right? But the
Not
statement
yet.
was, yeah. The statement was exactly, guys, we have a problem, and we need to figure out what is the impact on us and what we would need to do.
And the fact that we are having today CVEs and the queue of CVEs to fix that are there is going to be a problem, next month and next year and the year after. But at some point, quantum computers will be there, and if we didn't deal with the problem, we will have a bigger problem. So the trade-off is that it's yet another problem to deal with on top of the current queue of security problem you have to fix. The problem, the quantum problem is not going to disappear just because we don't have time to deal with it, or the queue or the amount of work we have to do is too much. So that is, for me, the quantum is an existential threat to OpenStack. Point. We're running mission critical infrastructures throughout the world. We cannot have some form of, functional quantum safe protection in the platform around 2028ish, something like that. That is because I have customers who already are asking those questions. What are your plans? What's going to happen? And they are going to make product decisions in the next year, the next 2 years. And some of those decisions will be based on the security assessment that they get and the level of confidence that the quantum problem will not be a problem for them. So for me, this is one of the two current major risks for OpenStack. And yes, I understand there's a lot of security issues and CVEs and problems, but the quantum problem is not going to just go away by not looking at it.
Dmitry?
Yeah, so while I kind of agree that having Oslo crypto as another abstraction layer is a terrible idea, the problem is that we need some kind of overview of libraries, which we like as part of requirements or something like that, which we expect to use. But another problem is that, for instance, Keystone has re-implemented some crypto modules because they started to be maintained in Python. And if we expect all projects to re-implement them in slightly different way, it might be even worse idea than having Oslo crypto. because we will have higher risks of having vulnerabilities in this code when it started to be like do the same but in 10 different ways.
Which is why if we manage to get pretty much in the same time frame an inventory of the different OpenStack projects, then we can have a unified view of what is being used in terms of crypto, and then maybe we can provide recommendations or guideline on, well, here is what is commonly used, here are the best way or the recommended algorithm you should be using, or the sort of recommending library that you should be using, and then here are the recommendations on how to implement it. And this is why I think there's a kind of a TC component into this work, because otherwise, I see exactly as you said, and I think we have 17 cryptographic modules at the moment, because it's exactly what happened. People were coding and they needed something to do whatever, hashing, encryption, and they just, I found that library works for me. Oops. And we move on. And that's life. That's the nature of open source development. It's just that at the moment, and it leads to a new problem.
Julia?
So there's a pragmatism here that I guess I feel the need to bring up. We're ultimately talking about improving security, like Clark just put in chat a little while ago, both in the short-term horizon and long-term horizon, and we need to invest in both. Because ultimately, as JP is pointing out, customers, users, operators are going to make business decisions of where they spend their money based upon the state and horizon. And I'm not meaning horizon the project, I mean horizon in terms of what is the published things. Is the community actively engaging on a forward path? Is the community recognizing there are problems and working to fix them? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if I have $50 or $100 million budget to invest in infrastructure, I'm going to operate with a risk management. I'm going to operate using what are my risks, what are my attack vectors, and I'm going to tailor everything I do based upon my attack vectors, my risks, what may cause me to fail. And every business is ultimately going to be doing this. And I think ultimately we need to double down on both the short and long-term aspects. So there is an aspect like CVEs and fixing security bugs, and also setting our direction, setting what we are going to do down the road to improve the current state. And the third aspect of that is we have to actually speak that out loud. We have to actively acknowledge there are problems and we want to work and improve them.
Jeremy?
Yeah, so ignoring this class of problems, I agree, does not make them go away, but also acknowledging them does not make the resources necessary for fixing them magically appear. And we've got a severe deficit in, for example, the proposed work would pretty significantly impact projects like Keystone that are central to the authentication of other services, projects like Requirements that are tracking all of these third-party libraries that are severely understaffed now. And so I think the biggest challenge for this is not going to be getting the TC to say, yes, this is a problem, or here's a plan, but making sure that there is actual developer activity funded behind it. The things that get fixed or features that get implemented in OpenStack are done because employers are paying their employees to work on those things. And if we can get the employers on board to say, okay, we're going to prioritize this for our staff, that's when it's going to happen. It's not going to happen just because the TC says that this is important.
So I can tell you it's going to happen for Barbican and Keystone. Because I'm the product manager for that, and I have my team that has clear goals on post-quantum support.
JP, let's take a step back. What Clark is saying is something, Clark, what Jeremy is saying is something different.
Okay.
We can say, and a project can say, and a vendor can say, we're going to do this for one aspect, but there are many aspects that need to be addressed. And ultimately, the right path forward is to build a community-based business case so that companies can go, oh, there is a thing. And ultimately, I realized there is a whole other aspect here that where people want people. Often, it's not people that you're going to be able to get. It's improved process or a slice of time to make something better. That is a process. So we have to look at what our risks are as a community too, and go, how do we manage and how do we improve these processes? How do we move this forward? Meanwhile, individual projects might be taking certain aspects. The best thing we can do as a group and a community is trying to collaborate.
All right, I think Tony had his hand up.
I just want to agree with what Julia just said, and point out, go back to something that JP said earlier, in that I think it was JP, might not have been. Part of the role of the requirements team is to make sure that as we add new libraries, we're doing so because they're needed, not just because it's convenient. Like in theory, some of these libraries do have overlap, but that the use for any new libraries that were added recently was because the existing things in global requirements didn't have that feature set or didn't implement those other things. So there's probably some duplication in there, but it's also not as much as we're thinking. That doesn't mean things can't change. So yeah, I think we just, at the moment, I think we've got a list of libraries and some minimal analysis about what the libraries do, but we need to do that risk analysis and do that pattern research. And is that something that you have resources to make happen, JP? Or is that your first ask to the TC? Try and find those resources.
I can nudge people that are involved in the community that work for my employer to work on that, but we're not covering all of the project. So you see some of the project, and I need the involvement of the community, and I cannot commit either, other project or teams in working into that. So yes, there needs to be a community will, and in each project there needs to be a will from the project to understand that there is this common goal, and not sure if the right word is the cheapest or it's not easiest, but if we manage to reduce the amount of cryptographic library we use, then it's going to make future maintenance also easier, because the side note of those new fancy cryptographic algorithms is that we might have to implement new algorithms 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, because we discover some flaws in the current first generation implementation. So we also have to consider that whatever effort we're doing at the moment in simplifying the cryptographic stack will also help in onboarding new cryptographic modules in the future. So I'll take all the goodwills.
Okay, so we could start by, we've got a list of projects that use cryptography, which is helpful. You said you can nudge people to do some of the work, which is great. But at the moment, we don't know which projects you have resources to do the audit of and which ones you don't. So it would be helpful to have some idea about like where that line is for you, and then we can maybe, I doubt we're going to get like one person per project or anything like that. So it would be good to have an idea of what resources are available and which projects are likely to be covered off by your employer.
Yeah, and the other question is the other contributing companies, because I've been in touch with the canonical people, and I need to talk to a few other contributors, company contributing to OpenStack, because at least from the canonical people we share an understanding that we need to do something, but we didn't progress the discussion at Open Infra into well, how this is going to translate for their part into working on fixing the problem. So I'm just myself representing one company. I cannot commit for other contributors to the code and who's going to be willing to contribute or not. And if there is no company willing to contribute to a given project, then that remains a question.
Yep, I agree with what you just said, but it'd be good to see which of the projects listed in the wiki page that you shared you feel are covered off, and then we can get some idea of how much work we're looking at and reach out.
Jay.
So, I just wanted to say, like, I don't necessarily disagree with any specific things that have been said here. It's simply a matter of focus. And as the new chair of the security SIG as of like a day ago, I can say that it exists as Jeremy and I, and we used to have PTG sessions where literally it was me, Jeremy, occasionally someone like Rosemata or Matthew Thobe would jump in, but it really wasn't a lot of people participating. So for my mind, I think one of the actions that we can take out of this that are really concrete is that people who are interested in these pathways, we should be facilitating these discussions in the security SIG, which might allow us a little bit better of an opportunity to, think about like, hey, can we publish a document saying like, here are security risks in OpenStack, and use that as a place to hold business plans in the same way that we've used upstream investment opportunities. I really think back to the Eventlet email I sent that, was basically a business case for migrating away from Eventlet, which I know got forwarded around senior leaders at some companies to help make the case. And so I would really love like the security SIG to be a place where some of that lives, where we're able to take technical security concerns and convert them into business cases to get the organizational level contribution. Because sort of a common theme I'm finding myself say a lot since Paris and in the PTG is that like we can't trust heroic individuals to solve these problems. We have to have systematic contribution and commitment from the companies that pay our salaries, so that if one day I go away, hopefully there'll be someone else to step up in gross to take my place and to pick up that slack. Same thing with other companies. And today I don't really think that's the case. I think that the focus of what folks work on is mostly determined by the things that they find interesting or that their manager finds interesting, and not necessarily being driven by the highest level priorities in terms of keeping OpenStack safe, secure, and modernly featureful.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Clark.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, like, so I wrote the additional notes there on line 180 and below. One of the other concern I have, in addition to just kind of having a better sense of where the risk is that the Python ecosystem has very minimal support for this in the first place. Python cryptography has not committed to any timeline to adding support for these methods. They are interested in doing so. There's been a couple people show up and say, hey, where should we start? But as far as I know, there has been no code pushed, at least, and there's no timeline for merging any of that. So I'm wondering too if part of the solution here is like building the foundation, before we start focusing on OpenStack. Maybe we need to go deal with Python cryptography or figure out how to use QuantCrypt, or build kind of that base layer that can be relied upon from there. And that, I think, I guess one of the benefits of doing that is that can happen in parallel with cleaning up cryptography within OpenStack. I just want people to be aware of that, right? Like in Python today, if you're a Python cryptography user, you are not post-quantum crypto capable. Like the support isn't there. And whether or not we need to do something to help push things along for tools like that, I don't know, but that's something I think we should keep in mind.
So I guess two aspects that come to mind. One, we should try and avoid implementing our own cryptographic algorithms in our own maintained libraries. That's specifically because who wants to deal with ITAR? And anyone that knows what that means will probably run for the hills. The other thought, going back to what Jay said, and I completely agree with you, Jay, and I think that there is value in having those collaborations in writing and having results, because then you're able to help you have that as part of the feedback loop. You're able to have that as part of the expectation setting. An end operator could look and go, "Oh, I could use this. Let me go chime in," or "Let me go ping my vendor and let them know how important this is to me." That helps drive the feedback loop, and I think it's immensely valuable to centralize those discussions and have visible results.
Great. Jeremy?
Yeah, just to reiterate that we've currently still got a deficit in focus on, as Jay pointed out, focus on security in general across our projects. And I do think that solving the class of problems that have been outlined here is predicated on investing in securing OpenStack more generally, making sure that teams like Keystone actually have the developer resources necessary to prioritize security fixes when they're identified, that sort of thing. The requirements team has the ability and the resources they need to be able to review dependencies. Those don't directly address the post-quantum crypto situation, but they are a necessity, I believe, before we can even attempt to tackle it.
Great. Thank you. And rounding that up, it looks like we did identify some AIs as such, which is to drill down this document to try to make it less verbose and kind of do the audit across the project teams like was done, but with the focus on what can be done. And the other aspect is that we need to strengthen the security SIG, and maybe this work could be a part of the security SIG. That's what I hear as the agreement over here. Sounds good. Anything else to be said about this topic?
Good for me.
All right, perfect. I think we're perfectly on time, and so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording here, and I was asked for a team picture, and I'm not sure we can do one here right now. Let's do that. I think let's try it. Yep.